Hey everybody, this is Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich with your Ski Southeast update for this week. We had a little bit of a mild spell here as we go into February, but there's some good news. Everybody's already fretting. Oh my gosh, winter's over. We only had a cold January, we had some snow, and now it's over. No, this is just a brief warm-up. It always gets warm like this before the mega cold dump, and that's what's setting up right now as we go into February. Let's start with what's going to happen in the short term. Short term, not good news. As we go through the middle of the week, it's going to stay very warm and wet. We're going to melt some snow. In fact, we could have severe weather with that line moving across Wednesday across the southeast. But the good news on the backside of that system, we are going to see some much colder air moving. It might even get a little bit of northwest flow snow up there in parts of West Virginia. I'm not going to say it's going to be a big deal, but definitely we're going to get a little bit of a, maybe I would say just maybe a dusting to a half an inch. Certainly not a big deal, but thankfully we're going to at least see something. So when we look at the Futurecast snowfall, don't get blown away by this. This is really not that big of a deal, but watch carefully up there in parts of West Virginia and Western Maryland. Again, that's about an inch, maybe an inch and a half. Not a big deal, but kind of shows you what's going to happen. As far as the temperatures, not great snowmaking. Obviously, it's going to be way too warm until about Thursday morning when temperatures actually will fall below freezing. So I think we're going to have to wait till this cold front passes through on Wednesday. So Thursday morning, snow guns could crank back up, and we might get some snowmaking in on Thursday night into Friday as well, as those cold temperatures are going to be sticking around. But here's what I'm talking about. If you want to see some of the coldest air of the season, just look at what's going to head our way. We've got the warm-up this weekend, Super Bowl weekend. Go Panthers. Everybody in the Southeast, I'm going to be rooting for the Panthers. You should be too. Once that Panthers game is over on Sunday, watch this. This is a little piece of the polar vortex, breaks off up here and moves down over parts of Hudson Bay. Now remember, the polar vortex never really ever comes down the United States. In a rare case, a piece of it might come down. And that's really not what's important. The media kind of butchers this. But notice what's going on. Big ridge on the West Coast. This induces a big trough on the West Coast, and there are indications that we might see a sudden stratospheric warming event. And what that means is, for the layman, when we see a warming in the stratosphere above the pole, we typically see a weaker polar vortex, and a weaker polar vortex is actually what forces cold air south. So when we see this weakening of the polar vortex, notice these kind of aqua colors. That's below zero readings, just funneling down into the eastern U.S. And look at this vortex. Big ridge, West Coast, big dip in the jet stream, and then we've got this big upper low in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere just kind of cartwheeling down pockets of cold air after pockets of cold air. So when we look at the snowfall forecast from the European, the first thing you'll notice, not much until we get to after the weekend. Early next week, it looks like there'll be a close call on Monday into Tuesday. I think for sure we're going to see snow in the mountains with this event on Monday into Tuesday. Could be a little bit of ice, though. That's my only concern, but certainly looks like it's a winter event. The GFS will reaffirm that and actually go a little bit better. It actually dumps a lot heavier snow. It wraps in much colder air and dynamics, and watch what happens early next week. This is Super Bowl Sunday, then Sunday night into Monday. Look at all that snow, actually more east of the mountains. So between the two of them, there's definitely some winter weather there, but what's more important is the pattern this sets up. We've got the polar vortex spinning down cold air, and we'll see the weakening of the polar vortex, which is going to usher in Arctic air, and we still have that active southern branch of the jet stream. This is like the perfect El Nino setup. Now, this is way out there. There's still a lot of uncertainty, and timing out both of those things is rather difficult, but the fact that I see them kind of setting up is really boding well for at least one or two big more storms in the southeast. And remember, when El Nino winters, the late winter is always better. We've seen that already in January. February looks good, and don't discount March. March could be snowy and cold as well. We may not really get into spring weather until April or May. So even though the ski season got off to a really slow start in November and December, we might make up for it with a much better end and maybe a late season. So I'm still holding out hope that that cold air is going to sync up with one of those southern stream pieces of energy. The Gulf low, a big Miller B, Miller A would be awesome. Either way, it would be great for the southeast. But no matter what, we're going to see plenty of cold air, which means snowmaking will continue. And I'm not worried about these ski slopes in the next coming weeks, because the cold air coming down certainly bodes well for snowmaking. We'll hopefully have an update on this coming up later this week. We'll talk more about this setup, but keep your fingers crossed and think snow. This looks to be some of the better setups we've seen so far this winter, and this is after we had a great January. I'll see you again later this week.